On the phone right now, Portia DeGeneres. Hello, Portia.
Hi, Rosie. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
Can I say you were wonderful on the Oprah Winfrey program?
Oh, thank you.
You really were so honest, so raw, and it must have been difficult to talk about it publicly like that for the first time.
Yeah, it was. You know, I've always said it's one thing writing a book in the privacy of your own home, but actually going out and talking about it is a whole other thing.
Yeah, and it's a very serious subject matter. It's about your struggle with anorexia and bulimia and the way that it affected every single part of your life, your family, your friends, your career.
Yeah.
It was very hard to listen to. It felt, I got all choked up a couple times. Honestly, seeing what it's like. I have to say that I did a guest spot on Ally McBeal, and I don't know if it was when you were on the show or not, because I wasn't in any scenes with you.
Right, it was actually. I was on the show.
But I do remember it was a very strange atmosphere for a TV show.
I guess that I can understand that. I can understand that it was strange, but I think it was because at that time, all eyes were on us, and it was kind of a bit of a phenomenon at the time.
Yes,
it was the first dramedy, as they say. It was the first time that kind of a comedy was in that format. Everybody was kind of watching everything we did, and also the set was run so well that we didn't really interact with each other.
Well, that was the part of the book that I really, I responded to. You said when you first got on there, and here it was a few years that it was already on, a couple seasons maybe, and you were there and you sort of said, hey, where does everybody do lunch? And Courtney said, well, we don't do lunch together. And it was very isolating, and that's, I think, what I felt too. I remember going to like what looked like a little hotel room and sitting kind of by myself and feeling sort of lonely. And at the time, there was sort of a lot of eating disorder issues from a lot of the women on that show.
Right, there were, but there were also, it was also kind of throughout the entire industry at that time, because, it was 1998 when I joined the cast of Ally McBeal, and at that time, all the actresses were taking over the job of models. The actresses were on the covers of magazines and expected to get beauty campaigns, and so I think we all felt pressure to be this kind of ideal cultural image of this kind of, gorgeous woman, and instead of just doing our job, which was to play a role on a TV show. And I think that's the thing that drove everybody crazy. And, if people seem more affected on David Kelly shows, it's because David Kelly shows were the most popular shows at that time.
Yeah, without a doubt. But, you almost wonder, like, if the atmosphere created, before you were on that show, did you struggle with this kind of issue before?
Yeah.
Oh, you did? So it was throughout your life, really?
It was really since my first diet, I can say I've struggled with a form of disordered eating. And I started dieting when I was 12 years old because I started modeling. And, I learned the highs of losing weight and the lows of gaining it back very early on in my life. And that cycle just kept continuing until I was about 30 years old, and I realized that diets just don't work, and I couldn't keep doing it anymore.
Do you think it was self-imposed, or do you think it was because of the industry? Do you think, like, you realized people who model have to be stick-thin, therefore you had to?
Of course. I mean, that's how I made a living. I mean, even as a 12-year-old, I was thin, but I really wasn't model thin. I still didn't have the right proportions. My thighs were always a little bit too big, and so I had to diet if I wanted to continue working, even as a little kid. So I've always had that in the back of my mind, and, while I thought that, I was cute when I was 10 years old and I wanted to become a model, like a little girl's dream, by the time I started modeling, I really had very low self-esteem because I was compared to other girls constantly.
Right.
My body parts were compared to others' girls' body parts. And, I would either get jobs because I was thin enough to do them, or I wouldn't. And I was very aware of the times when I couldn't book jobs because I was too heavy.
Do you think that it's possible to be in that industry without having any kind of eating disorder? Because it seems as though what they expect you to maintain or to get to is so unrealistic that it would almost force a person to become anorexic.
Not unless you have incredibly small bone structure and you're really, really tall.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like just because a girl is like really willowy and stick thin, It doesn't mean that she has an eating disorder if that's what her body is naturally comfortable being. And usually, you'll find that kind of look in girls under the age of 18 because they haven't really developed properly.
Right.
And so, as 40-year-old women, we're looking at 15-year-old girls and thinking that our bodies should look like that.
Yeah.
And they're the girls that are in Vogue magazine. They're the high-end kind of fashion models that we're all trying to emulate when really we're looking at kids.
I know, it's so scary. And having a daughter myself who's 13 years old and who, always thinks she's not fat at all. She always thinks she's fat. And, and I try to explain to her, even if you look at Mommy on that magazine, does that look like Mommy in real life,
Right.
And she can't make the connection. She can't, I don't know. I kind of thought the fact that her mother would be airbrushed and not look at all like her mother would let her realize that that girl on the magazine doesn't look like that in real life either. But
yes, but I have to say we're kind of taught to not trust our mothers too.
Yeah.
As young women, young consumers, we're always told that aging is something that you can defy with a certain cream, or you can somehow be smarter than your mothers. And so we're kind of listening and saying, I understand that there's airbrushing. I understand that these girls, some of them are emaciated and sick, but I kind of don't care, or I just want to be that girl. I want to be, I want to be the image of what I think that people want me to be in order to be successful.
When you were that thin in the book, and you talk a lot about, the details of it, which I think is really good for people who don't have a concept of what it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, there are websites, and it's controversial, where they're like anorexic websites where people can go to quote-unquote learn the tricks of the trade, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of your book details some of the tricks of the trade, and though the emotional price that you pay for it is relevant in the book, too. So, in a way, was that your goals, to show kind of the intensity of what it does to you emotionally?
Yeah, it was. I when I thought about writing this book initially, I didn't want to write about things that happened in my life. I wanted to talk about things that happened in my head, and really, I wanted to tell the story from that sick person's perspective, and I wanted her to really try to explain why she thought she was doing the right thing, why I thought I was healthy, why I thought running for an extra 10 minutes was better than running for 10 less minutes, or 20 calories less would surely be a better thing for me than overeating, and I really tried to explain what it was like to have that kind of anorexic thinking, and really to show how a simple diet can become a disorder very quickly. And I didn't even realize it was happening to me. I just thought that I was being professional, and I thought that I was doing just a little bit better than I had done the day before.
When you looked in the mirror, did you see how thin you were?
I did. I think I did. I saw very, very skinny arms. I saw bones protruding. But the thing that I was focused on was that inch of fat on my stomach and the inches of fat around my thighs that I still hadn't lost.
I know in the book you talk about your brother and what he said and your parents when you went home for Christmas. Did any of the people in your work life say anything, like your agent or your publicist? Or?
Well, they did, but it was usually preceded with a compliment. Like, you look great, but don't lose any more weight, because, you'll be too thin if you lose more weight. But I didn't hear any of it. And, it's really easy to disguise an eating disorder, or to disguise being underweight, even. I look at episodes of Ally McBeal, and I look perfectly fine, and I was as sick as can be, and truly emaciated. But you wear the right clothes, and, you tell people that you're eating well, that you're just overworked or tired, or that you know that you have to gain weight. I mean, I'd say all kinds of things just to appease people and to kind of get them off my back.